Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Nandana Brajajanaran Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Ya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Dana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Tira Vanachadi Jamana Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gaur Pimanandi. Now, ladies can sit on this side too. It's perfectly okay because the screen is in the middle and you're way over here. Can you see? No. Please come sit where you can see because I'll be in anxiety if you can't. Just, I spend so much time putting this together, so you come where you can see, please. You can see. You can see. We can turn the screen so you can see better. You're okay. 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 Well, sometimes people come late. That happens sometimes, more than sometimes. So I'll go slowly to the beginning. Now, you two are a little familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam? Yes? No? Srimad Bhagavatam. 0. Does it mean anything to you, Srimad Bhagavatam? She's looking at you. You know what Srimad Bhagavatam is? Don't. Okay. That's our topic. Let's do this. Srimad Bhagavatam, you know what you know who Krishna is? Good. That's a good start. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhagavad Gita. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, giving teachings of the yoga system, this yoga, that yoga, the yoga ladder, up to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is in the last chapter. The last chapter, Krishna says, so many teachings I've given, so many teachings are there in the Vedas, duties and Dharma. All of those are subordinate to one principle. The one principle is take shelter of me. That's a very simple description of what Bhagavad Gita is. And one way of understanding the relationship of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad Gita is undergraduate study and the Bhagavatam is graduate study. What you learn in undergraduate school doesn't change when you get to graduate school. It's just further detail and further detail. So the essence of Bhagavad Gita is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is who is Krishna? So truths, Sanskrit word is tattva. Truths about Krishna are detail and detail and detail and 12 cantos. 12 cantos. Like Bhagavad Gita is this thick, it's that thick. It's just an expanded version of details and details and details of the source of everything. And then there's everything that comes from the source, and there's details and details. But the thread throughout is there, all of this has a source. Life has a source, and that source ultimately is the Supreme Person. Part of the teaching is living entities, they're little tiny sparks from that same source. They're replicas, little tiny, tiny, tiny sparks from a big fire. And the big fire is the source of those little sparks. So we all have a relationship with that source, and hearing about the source helps us remember what that relationship with the source is. And that's the program. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. So what's on the screen here, on the left side is a little poster, and the poster is promoting an event. The event that's being promoted is the full moon. It's called Purnima. At the end of this month that we're in is the Purnima month of Bhadra, and this is a very special day. Do you know what Ekadasi is? No idea. Okay. Ekadasi is phases of the moon. The calendar that the American follows is primarily a solar calendar. And then some calendars are lunar calendars. Like in China, they follow a lunar calendar. They don't follow the solar calendar. In India is both lunar, solar mix. So each time that the moon goes through the waning moon and the waxing moon, and that makes 1 month, a lunar month. And so many lunar months make a year. 12 months make a year. So this is the lunar month of Bhadra, and during this month is the month you probably know Krishna made his appearance. You were at the temple for Janmashtami? No. Okay. Janma means birth. Ashtami means 8 days after the full moon, Krishna made his appearance. It's a special Krishna's birthday, like Christmas. You know, Christmas is. So, like Krishna appeared. And it's a celebration, and it's in this same month. And the end of this month, the Purnima, is another nice special festival. And it's the full moon at the end of the month of Bhadra. It says, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam itself, one who makes a gift of this Srimad Bhagavatam to somebody, On that full moon day, they get some special kindness from Krishna. The special kindness they get from Krishna is that at the end of their life, they will achieve the transcendental destination. Not necessarily at this life, but there's enormous spiritual benefit that comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam and giving the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam on this Bhadra Purnima day. So during this visit, I've been kind of on a soapbox saying "Ra Ra" Srimad Bhagavatam and encouraging that our members appreciate what's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then speak the message and live the message of Srimad Bhagavatam and give that same opportunity to others. You know who is Srila Prabhupada? No. The person who started, who came to America in 1965, a few years ago, with the instruction of his teacher, his guru, to go to the English-speaking parts of the world and bring this message, the message of a life of devotion. And so he did. And to do so, he brought the first of the 12 cantos of the Bhagavatam, translated with commentary in English. It was a big undertaking without details because he didn't have money. That was one big problem. But he had to get the money to have it printed, and printing was not very common in India at that time. But he did it, and he brought the volumes with him to give the message of devotion to Krishna to the English-speaking parts of the world that knew nothing about it, or even if scholars knew something about it, they had misinformation. So it was a daunting challenge, but he did it, and in the course of time, those first canto Bhagavatam became 12 cantos Bhagavatam, became translated into 61 languages around the world and printed all over the world, and all over the world, not just here in America. Devotees all over the world are engaged in this month of Srimad Bhagavatam and encouraging people to receive that message of Krishna, who is the source of everything. His personality, his features, his loving dealings, his emanations, his, the whole shebang, everything. And by hearing that message, two things, very simple. The heart becomes cleansed, and that which we have forgotten becomes awakened. Meaning, all living entities have a source of emanation. All of us, not just human beings. All living entities have a source of emanation. All sparks have a fire from which they've come. We've forgotten that relationship, and therefore we're looking for happiness in some other way. So the twofold purpose of spiritual life of any kind is cleansing away forgetfulness and awakening what we forgot. And that love is what we want. And replacing that loving propensity towards that which is our source, our spiritual father, eternal spiritual father, material nature being the mother. There's mothers, but other mothers are but performing the part of material nature, providing us bodies and stuff that we need. That's what mothers do. And then the father, and the seed-giving father, according to Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna, and the seed-giving father of all living entities. Aham bija pratak pita. And then hearing about that father, that supreme source of everything, whom we have an eternal relationship with but have forgotten. That's the Bhagavatam. So it's a nice, that's what we're doing for the next 3 nights. Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam. Da, 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 da. Now, on the screen here, it says this is a Purana Amalam. Purana is, now we're going to address the general audience more. Purana means history. There's divisions of the Vedas. There's the philosophical portion, or the Shrutis, that tells how to perform activities in this world in such a way that your necessities are met. So, like the Vedas, that's the scripture, that's the Shrutis, it's like the mother. Mothers want to know what the necessities of their child are, and they supply the necessities of their child, whatever that is. That's what mothers like to do. So mothers do, and they like doing it. The Vedas do the same thing. The Vedas is like a mother. And the Vedas supply, the Shrutis supply necessities of life by Vedic mantras, and Brahmanas engaging in sacrifice with uttering of Vedic mantras, and necessities are there. And there's the Smriti section, which is explained through the Shruti section. Like, here's the understanding behind what all those mantras are about. And the ultimate necessity is not just stuff, that, food and clothing and shelter and stuff and protection and stuff, but the mission of the soul's journey back to the place that we left and we've forgotten. Ultimately, that's what the Vedas are doing, and this word here on the screen is Purana. It's a history of how all of that has taken place over time. And amongst all of the Puranas, one of them is this adjective Amala. Mala and Amala. It's spotless Purana. There's no mixture in this Srimad Bhagavatam with other purposes than this one purpose. There's understanding, there's information, but the purpose is one. Amala Puranam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Amala Purana. So the verse that is inspiring this evening's class is text 17 in the final chapter of the entire 18 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. Is this announcement that says you make a gift of the Srimad Bhagavatam to someone on the full moon of this month of Bhadra, and you get enormous spiritual benefit. The giver that gives the gift attains the supreme transcendental destination. In the very next verse, it describes what that gift is. It's the Puranam Amalam. Now, some of you know this verse. Ramya Kachit Upasana Vrajavatu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Amalam Puranam. Again, Amala Puranam. Srimad Bhagavatam Amala Puranam. This is taken from a commentary on, or a history of the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, written long ago. The author is identified at the bottom. And these are just 2 lines from this Bhagavatam commentary. So it's a commentary about Srimad Bhagavatam. The ways of worship of the son of the king of Vrajadam. The son of the king of Vrajadam. The king is Nanda Maharaj. The son of the king is Krishna, is the son of Nanda. So the way of worship of Krishna may be various, but the one which was conceived by the circle of the damsels of Vrajadam is unsurpassable by any other devotee. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam is the unalloyed guidance for this purpose of approaching the worshipful Lord. So let's say the same thing. This is there's the Sanskrit, the translation of this commentary. To say the same thing simply, in all the Puranas, some mention is also made of Krishna, the source of everything, naturally. And this Srimad Bhagavatam pays special effort to describing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are very, very special for Krishna and for the devotees of Krishna. The childhood pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan are very, very special. And they're elaborately discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. And amongst those who are engaged in loving dealings with Krishna in Vrindavan is the gopis, the Vraja, the damsels of Vrajadam. Vraja means Vrindavan. The damsels of Vrajadam. They had such love for Krishna that it surpasses any other feature of loving dealings that is found between the source of everything and that which comes from the source of everything. It's the topmost kind of that love is the love of the resident of Vrindavan, and it's taught elaborately, described elaborately in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what we're spending time. Now, here's an earlier verse from the same chapter. This is the role of Srimad Bhagavatam amongst other scriptures. All other religious scriptures remain respected in an assembly of learned people as long as Srimad Bhagavatam, which is filled with nectar, does not enter their assembly. As soon as Srimad Bhagavatam comes to their hands, other spiritual scriptures become faded. Now, this is a statement about Srimad Bhagavatam from another Purana. Padma Purana says this exact same Sanskrit as found in Srimad Bhagavatam. The reason there's one author or compiler, and that author or compiler is Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva compiled all the Vedas and all the Puranas. So it's very same verses in these two places. They mention in the same section, the final chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 13, is all other scriptures are revered, yet when Srimad Bhagavatam enters into that assembly of the revealed scriptures, these other scriptures honor Srimad Bhagavatam as the topmost. Here's another reference, the same glorification, similar glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam found in other Puranas. This one is from Garuda Purana. Very nice, I like this one. The meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is present in Srimad Bhagavatam. Most of the devotees in the room are certainly familiar with these terms, but some are not, so I'm going to take a little more time. Vedanta Sutra, what's that? That's the compiler of all the Vedas was Vyasadeva, and he summarized the essence of all that vast body of literature, the Vedic literature, in little codes or Vedanta Sutras. Srimad Bhagavatam is an explanation of Vedanta Sutra. It's an essence of the essence. Pretty nice. The full purport of Mahabharata is also there. Mahabharata is another one of the histories. And in Mahabharata, the total teachings found within the Vedas are summarized. And the full purport of Mahabharata is in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Garuda Purana saying these things. The commentary of Brahma Gayatri is also there. Gayatri is a very special mantra. Brahma Gayatri is a very special mantra that in a mantra form is expressing the totality of truth. By chanting of Brahma Gayatri, one may become purified enough to become acquainted with the ocean of truth. as happened with Lord Brahma. And the Bhagavatam is the encapsulates this Brahma Gayatri as a commentary on Brahma Gayatri. And fully expanded with all Vedic knowledge, Srimad Bhagavatam is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnation as Vyas. There, in case you're uncertain which book we're referring to, the one with 12 cantos, 335 chapters, and 18,000 verses. So that Srimad Bhagavatam is a very special text. And that's the very special text that we're interested in receiving, assimilating, and making it available to others. Similar, here's from Matsya Purana, wherein the supreme Dharma is elaborated upon on the foundation of Gayatri, same mention, Gayatri mantra, and where the killing of Vritrasura demon is mentioned, because other Puranas do not have that Vritrasura story that the Srimad Bhagavatam does, so it's that one, that Bhagavat Purana, is known by the name Srimad Bhagavatam, one who, on the full moon day, gives away in charity Srimad Bhagavatam, establishing it on a golden throne, will attain the highest destination. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of 18,000 verses. I was curious. So I did a little research to find out what is this golden throne thing. And the explanation that our acharyas give, did I circulate that here? Yes? Okay. So some of you got it. If you didn't get it, speak to her. She'll make sure you get it. It's a metaphor explicitly. It's not literal, it's metaphorical. A golden throne can be a golden throne, literally, or our acharyas explain it's intended to be metaphorical in the sense that the sun is golden, and amongst the luminaries in the sky, the sun is the king or topmost. So as the sun is the topmost luminary in the sky, so also the Bhagavatam is the topmost light or golden light-giving source of knowledge. And the throne, at golden throne, the indication is, this is astrology. According to astrology, the movements of the sun and the movements of the moon move through different constellations. Those of you that don't know astrology or astronomy, that doesn't mean so much to you. But the movements of the sun are tracked. The movements of the moon, the day of the month, of the lunar month, are identified where the moon is moving through certain constellations of stars. The constellations of stars are not moving. The moon is moving. And the sun is moving. And so against the background of those constellations, one can tell what day of the month it is, or what day of the year it is, by the movements of the sun through the constellations of stars. So in this, could you not do that? Thank you. The constellation of stars for this month is the constellation of Leo. Leo, lion. Leo the lion. And there's a lion throne, Singhasana. So that's this month you give the Bhagavatam as a gift because it is the sun-like or the golden-like month where the throne, there's the sun is moving through the Leo constellation. So that makes give the gift in this month, especially on that final day, the full moon day of the month. That's the explanation given by our acharyas. Because who's going to go get a golden throne? Here's that was what some of the there's more. There's many more references. I didn't include them all. Here's something from our acharyas, our teachers, speaking what is special about this Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's Srila Prabhupada writing in the Bhagavatam purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly a very dear scripture for all the devotees of the Lord, but it is auspicious even for the non-devotees also, because it explains that even the non-devotees hover under the spell of material energy, hovering under the spell of material energy, can be delivered from such clutches if they hear the narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam with devotion and attention from the right source, representing the Lord by disciplic succession. Here's a little statement by Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta was the spiritual master of our founder, Srila Prabhupada. And that's a photograph of him. And he wrote a little pamphlet, No Other Book Like the Bhagavad. And it goes like this. It's extreme. Even if all the books of the world were to be burned, there would be no harm, provided one treatise was left, Srimad Bhagavatam. Even if thousands of learning centers were to be abolished, there would be no feeling of inconvenience, provided the reading and teaching of the Bhagavatam continued. There are no other books in the world like Srimad Bhagavatam. This is not mere tittle-tattle or an exaggerated homage. If one reflects on it as a truly impartial judge, one will realize that there has not been, nor will there ever be, a book like the Bhagavatam. Now that's his glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's a nice glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktisiddhanta's father, also a great acharya and author, wrote 100 books. Try writing a book sometime. In one of his writings, he presents, from the pranava or Om came Gayatri. From Gayatri came the Vedas. From the Vedas came the Brahma Sutra. And from the Brahma Sutra came Srimad Bhagavatam, which has brightly arisen like the Satchit Ananda sun. Those who have eyes should see, those who have ears should hear, and those who have minds should meditate on the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. These are words of glorification by our acharyas. Here's some nice understanding that drawing here is a drawing of Sanatana Goswami. It's a very nice story. When Sri Sanatana was young, a Brahmana appeared to him in a dream, and in his dream blissfully gave him a Srimad Bhagavatam. When he woke up, he was perturbed. Young boy. Then, later that morning, the same Brahmana came and gave him the Srimad Bhagavatam. When he obtained the Bhagavatam, Sanatana became ecstatic and merged in the ocean of prema. After this incident took place, Sanatana began reading Srimad Bhagavatam daily. From a young man. So he was born in a Brahmin family, very qualified family, a devotee family, and he got trained from the early part of his life with that gift in his dream and then in person. And then later in his life, in his young adult life, he met Lord Chaitanya, and he got the opportunity to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya and be instructed directly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave personal instructions to Sanatana about the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Based on those instructions, Sanatana compiled Digdarshini Tika, which is a commentary on the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, then a commentary on Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari Bhakti Vilas is a manual that describes from the Srimad Bhagavatam how to do everything that Krishna's devotee does. Everything, everything. Vaishnava Toshini, which is a commentary just on the 10th canto, and then another commentary called Brihat Bhagavatamrita. In other words, he was immersed in Srimad Bhagavatam, in short, from childhood, and was gifted with the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam given to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now here's something that's very nice. Maybe not all of you in the room know this history. When Krishna was in when Krishna was in Dwaraka, he had many queens. And before Krishna departed this world, he gave an instruction to his chariot driver, Daruka. I'm going to depart the world. You know it. You're begging me, please don't leave without you. But I have some service for you. This is right in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. He said to his chariot driver Daruka, shortly after I depart this world, the whole city of Dwarka is going to be again submerged in the ocean. Go immediately to Dwarka, inform the residents in Dwarka to remove all their paraphernalia, because the city of Dwarka is going to be underwater. And all of my queens should be escorted by Arjuna to Mathura, because my great-grandson, Vajranabh, will become the king there. And then they can be under the care of Vajranabh in Mathura. So that's what happened. The queens, it's in the first canto Bhagavatam, the queens were escorted by Arjuna back to Mathura. He went to Hastinapur, that was the ruling capital, but Mathura was another place where the lineage of kings resided. After Krishna's disappearance from this world, his queens came to Braja. So they're living in Mathura, but they wanted to visit the place of Krishna's childhood pastimes, because they were married, but they didn't know about his childhood pastimes. They wanted to go to where his childhood pastimes were. They went. And they were assisted by Krishna's grandson, Vajranabh. Vajranabh was the king in Mathura, and he escorted them and took them around to the places of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. One day, while being tormented by the pain of separation from Krishna, they noticed that their co-wife, Kalindi, alone was happy, because Krishna had many queens. One of the queens was named Kalindi, and she wasn't unhappy. So they asked her, what's the secret? And she, Kalindi, explained that there's a teaching that she heard from Uddhava, that when you're feeling separation from Krishna, you can get relief by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And they had this enthusiasm to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Uddhava. So their pain of separation from Krishna could be mitigated. So what did they do? There's this nice description. There's a painting of Uddhava, because when Uddhava, you know who is Uddhava? This young man here. You know who is Uddhava? You know who is Arjuna, right? Arjuna was Krishna's cousin. Uddhava was Krishna's cousin. How was it that that Arjuna was Krishna's cousin? Here's how. Arjuna had a mother. Who was Arjuna's mother? Kunti, right? Kunti? And Kunti was the sister of Krishna's father. Krishna's father was Vasudeva, And Vasudeva had a sister named Kunti. So Kunti was Arjun's mother. Krishna was Vasudev's son, so they're cousins. It's easy. But Vasudev not only had a sister, he had a number of brothers. And one of his brothers was the father of Uddhava. So when Krishna left Vrindavan, he was very young. He was brought to he was brought by Akrura to Mathura. And Krishna dealt with Kamsa and all that stuff happened. Krishna remained in Mathura for some time. After some time, and as soon as Krishna reached Mathura, who was there? Uddhava. And then Krishna went to Dwarka. Who went with him? Uddhava. For nearly 112 years, Uddhava was constant companion with Krishna. Constant companion. Very, close. They weren't just cousins. They were very close. So when, for example, when Krishna's in Mathura, before he went to Dwarka, he sent Uddhava with a message to the gopis. Remember that one? Because he's confidential. So he could carry confidential message to the gopis. How much he's feeling great separation from them, knowing their great separation from him. So Uddhava carried the message. Krishna's message to the gopis. And when Uddhava saw the intensity of love of the resident of Vrindavan, in particular the gopis, he offered a prayer to Krishna. May I one day become a blade of grass in Vrindavan, and maybe be in the blade of grass, have the dust of the gopis' feet touch my head and be blessed by it. Because I could ask them for the dust of their feet, but they'd be too embarrassed. So maybe I can become a blade of grass. So Krishna granted him that wish. He became a blade of grass. So the king was Parikshit. You've heard his name, right? So Parikshit lived in Hastinapur, that's now Delhi. And then there's Mathura, that's not so far from Delhi, and that's where Vajranabha lived, Krishna's grandson. So the king, and then the emperor, and then the king of Mathura, Vajranabha, the two of them, Parikshit and Vajranabha together, went with the queens to find Uddhava, because they wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Uddhava. So what did they do? There's a place, a very celebrated place in Vrindavan. Maybe some of you have been there, Uddhava Kund. Who has been there to Uddhava Kund? A few of you. Someday. When you go to Vrindavan, you'll want to go to Govardhan, for sure. And when you go to Govardhan, ask the guide, where's Uddhava Kund? I want to see Uddhava Kund. There's a special temple where there's an Uddhava deity along with Krishna. So he had become a blade of grass at Uddhava Kund. So what they did, the king, the emperor and the king, Parikshit and Vajranabha, went with the gopis, with the queens, to Vrindavan and had a big festival, a Sankirtan, chanting. And from their chanting, what happened is Uddhava made his appearance outside of a grove of bushes and creepers because he had become a blade of grass. And he was attracted to Krishna Kirtan. And when Uddhava saw them in that ecstatic mood of Kirtan, he embraced King Parikshit. And then they made this request, please narrate Srimad Bhagavatam to us. Isn't that nice? This, what I just narrated to you, is described in Padma Purana, in the Bhagavat Mahatmya section of Padma Purana, and in Skanda Purana. And you go to Vrindavan one day. You'll go to Vrindavan, I'm sure. maybe more than once. And you can go to that place where Uddhava met with the queens and spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to them. Very nice. Compliments of Kalindi, one of Krishna's queens that was not disturbed. This is another reference. Uddhava said to the king from this same section, "O king, you are most fortunate. You're always in exclusive devotion to Krishna. Among all the inhabitants of Dwarka, these queens are without a doubt most fortunate. Under the influence of Yogamaya, they have forgotten themselves and are suffering from anxiety caused by separation from Krishna." You want to see the screen, you got to sit over here. But we saved you a space. And your daughter, too. Fantastic. I'll read it again. Under the influence of Yogamaya, these queens have forgotten themselves and are suffering from anxiety caused by separation from Krishna. Unless Krishna become visible to them, none of them will regain their proper consciousness. But Krishna has wound up his pastimes. That time has finished. And now we have entered a different age because after Krishna's departure, Kali Yuga begins. The next age begins. However, listen, and I will tell you another way. Even Krishna can't be manifest in his pastimes. He can be visible through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, it says this directly in Padma Purana and Skanda Purana. Uddhava says that to Maharaj Pariksit and to the queens and to his grandson, to Krishna's grandson, Vrajanabha. Now, here's a nice teaching. Get ready for something that's a little you're not used to hearing. In every day of Brahma, Krishna appears. Correct? Yes? No? Maybe? Yes. Okay. And the day of Brahma is a long duration. 8,432,000,000 solar years is one day of Brahma times 2 is his night. It's it's rare when Krishna comes, but when Krishna comes, also with him comes Srimad Bhagavatam. But the pastimes of Krishna are variegated slightly from day of Brahma to the next day of Brahma to the next day of Brahma. And the Srimad Bhagavatam narrations are the same essential pastimes, but slight variation. So in each day of Brahma, we get a little variation. We should expect it. Don't be surprised when you get some variations. And one of the times in which the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, according to Skanda Purana, Krishna spoke this Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Vishnu. The painting is showing Krishna in the spiritual sky. And there's Mahavishnu reclining in the ocean of the causal ocean. And then in turn, Garbhodakshay Vishnu spoke to the goddess Lakshmi. In the Vaikuntha realm, Lord Narayan speaks to Lord Shiva. Narayan speaks to Lord Brahma. This is from our Bhagavatam. Doesn't say which day of Brahma, but Narayana spoke to Lord Brahma. 3rd canto, 12th canto, and 2nd canto. Here's Lord Narayan to Lord Brahma in the 3rd canto. There's the Sanskrit. This is Maitreya speaking to Uddhava. "O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma," this is Narayana, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, that's Garbhodakshay Vishnu, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, we're accustomed, the Hare Krishna movement members are accustomed to hearing the very simple version. We're not making something simple complicated, it's just there's different days of Brahma. Our version is, within the heart of Brahma, the first created being, the knowledge of the Vedas was revealed. Tene Brahma Hrida Adikavye Moyanti Atsurayaha. The knowledge was revealed through the heart of Brahma. Brahma in turn passed that knowledge on to Narada. Narada in turn passed that knowledge on to Vyas. Vyas compiled the Vedas. 1, 2, 3. But there are different days of Brahma. And sometimes it's a little different, sometimes it's a little different. It's the same eternal knowledge, just the presentation of that same eternal knowledge makes its manifestation slightly differently at different times. So this is 3rd Canto, Chapter 4. Here's another reference, 12th Canto, Chapter 13. It was to Brahma that the Supreme Personality of Godhead first revealed the Srimad Bhagavatam in full. At that time, Brahma, frightened by material existence, was sitting on the lotus flower that had grown from the Lord's navel. That's the version that we're familiar with. Then Brahma, in turn, instructed it to Narada Muni. That's Canto 2, Chapter 7. Oh, Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of his diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself. So the potencies is part of what emanates from the source. There's one source of everything. And that one source of everything has different manifestations. Some is just simply different potencies. Some different personalities, some expansions of that original person from his own personal expansions. Then in turn, as Narada heard it, he passes it on to Vyas. And that's described here. In succession, O king, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati. And that's where he compiled. Some of us will be going in 2 weeks to the Himalayas. And the Himalayas, way, 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 way up in the Himalayas, at the topmost part of the Himalayas, is a cave where Vyas did this composing of the Vedas. That's what the painting is showing. There he's compiling Srimad Bhagavatam. And after some time, Vyas in turn instructed this knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam to Shukadev. Shukadev pictured in this nice painting. So Vyas gave the teaching to his son. Here's the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Shukadev Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. And then, again in the 2nd canto, at the end of Dwarapa Yuga, I, that's Sukadev, studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas, from my father, Srila Dvaipayana Vyasadeva. And then after Shukadev received it from his father, Shukadev passed it on to Maharaj Parikshit. That's this painting, Canto 1, Chapter 3. This is disciplic succession, depicted in pictures, but also slokas. Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vyas, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great Emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges awaiting death without taking food or drink. Now, the circumstance was, as you all know, or most of you know, the circumstance was a misfortune turned into a great fortune. The misfortune was the king, after Krishna departed, the next appointed emperor of the world was Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was a very highly elevated, virtuous person, and Maharaj Parikshit did something that was uncharacteristic of such an elevated person. He became overwhelmed with thirst, and then he became overwhelmed with anger, and those two things combined, he then offended a sage who was in meditation, who didn't receive him properly. Shamak Rishi was in meditation in the forest. There's details and details. And so he offended the sage, said, what kind of brahmana, what kind of great sage, sagacious person are you? You can't even receive a guest in your home? And I'm the king? I'm just asking you from water, and you. So he went outside this hermitage. There's a dead snake on the ground. He picked up the dead snake on the tip of his sword and placed the dead snake around his neck like a garland and left in anger. The news of that offense to his father went to the son, because this was a householder. He had like a 10, 12-year-old son. And his son had training from his father. He had Brahminical strength. And when he heard how his father had been dishonored or mistreated by the king, he cursed the king, that he would die in 7 days. But by mystical entity, he created by this mantra a mystical entity. There's no such thing as a flying serpent. Serpents crawl and birds fly. There's no such thing as a flying serpent. I mean, in fairy books there are, but there's no such thing. But he created through mantra, and sure enough, he was bitten by this snake bird. So what Maharaj Parikshit did, hearing this, he heard, he's the king, and he was informed, you've been cursed by this little boy. He said, I deserve it. I've offended a Brahmin. So I'm going to die in 7 days. He gave up his kingdom. He turned his kingdom over to his eldest son, Janamejaya, and he gave up his royal attire and all his ornaments and his possessions. Went by the side of the river Ganges, and that's where he was instructed by Shukadev Goswami, now that I know that I'm going to die in 7 days, what is my duty? What should I do with these last 7 days of my life? How do I fix my mind to receive the moment of death properly? Good question. Because we're all going to die. Well, how to fix your mind so the ultimate destination of the soul is achieved. And that it was decided by the sages that were present he should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the one who heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami. So Shukadev Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam, and there's a description for those of you that remember a little bit, like 15 minutes ago, Sanatana Goswami. Remember hearing about Sanatana Goswami? From childhood, he was absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So he wrote a very nice book that begins like this. When Shukadev Goswami finished speaking Srimad Bhagavatam in its entirety to the king, he got up and left. And the mother of the king, her son is going to die in just a few days remaining after hearing the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. His mother came running up and said, I couldn't understand everything. Could you summarize what you just heard? And the king said, "My dear mother, this isn't the right time to ask such a question. But because you're my mother, I'll summarize what I just heard." And the summary of what he just heard was another book by Sanatana Goswami, summarizing, it's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And there's two parts to Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That's the summary of what he heard, what Maharaj Parikshit heard from Shukadev Goswami. Here's the verse. Blessed Uttara said, "My dear son, please extract the essence of what Shukadev has taught you and quickly reveal it to me, as if churning the nectar of immortality from the ocean of milk." She wanted a mini summary, so she got it. That's another retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then, in disciplic succession, in that assembly where Shukadev Goswami spoke to Srimad Bhagavatam, to the king, to the emperor, Parikshit, in the audience was another great sage named Sutta. Later, sequentially, chronologically, Sutta was asked by some sages who had assembled in a holy place called Naimisharanya. They assembled in a place called Naimisharanya because they also knew, the sages knew, now that Krishna has departed, it's tough times. The tough times as the age of Kali is going to begin, it's going to get darker and darker and darker. So we want to do something. They planned to do what they knew how to do. What they planned to do was one sacrifice, one yagya, one ritual sacrifice as soon as one was finished, another one be started, as soon as that's finished, going on for 1,000 years, a whole assembly of sages. Even if one had to take a nap, the others were there to continue for 1,000 years. That was their plan. In their assembly came Sutta. They stopped their yagya. They said, better than that is let's hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami. And so Sutta Goswami spoke the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the Bhagavatam that we have. Sutta Goswami speaking what he heard from Maharaj Parikshit, from Shukadev Goswami, who heard it from his father Vyasadeva, who heard it from Narada Muni, who heard it from Lord Brahma, who heard it from Krishna himself. And that's the contemporary sequence of disciplic succession to get what we have. But then there's other days of Brahma where there's other speakers. We'll see as we go on. So here's the verse from Canto 1, Chapter 18. Oh, Sutta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception, for we are anxious to receive such messages. That's the assembly of the sages at Naimisharanya petitioning, requesting Sutta to speak. Please give us that understanding that you received hearing Shukadev speak. And then towards the final canto of the Bhagavatam, oh, best of the Kurus, the same Sutta Goswami, who is sitting before us, will speak this Bhagavatam to the sages assembled in the great sacrifice at Naimisharanya. This he will do when questioned by the members of the assembly headed by Shonaka. So Shonaka is a very senior member of all those sages, so he became the spokesperson. And he was asking Sutta questions, and Sutta was giving the answers according to what he heard from Shukadev Goswami. Here's some other examples according to Skanda Purana. This is Uddhava. We mentioned this already. This is Uddhava in Vrindavan speaking to the queens of Dwarka. Uddhava, remember? Uddhava spoke the Bhagavatam to the queens at their request. They wanted to hear. They wanted to become freed from their feelings of separation from Krishna who has departed. Kalindi said, just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Uddhava, that it can be made possible. So they heard. Skanda Purana describes. And in another place, this is, some of you are very familiar with Puri. Our family members here have deities of Lord Jagannath from Jagannath Puri over here on their altar. So there's a local tradition in Bhubaneswar that Lord Shiva spoke to Parvati and to Shukadeva Goswami the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we know that the four Kumaras have their sampradaya. Yes? There's the Brahma sampradaya, which we've described. The Kumaras have a Kumara sampradaya. That's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Lord Sankarshan spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to the four Kumaras. Here's the verse. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumar, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumar also, in his turn, when inquired by Sankyayana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he heard it from Lord Sankarshan. And here's Sankyayana Muni hearing from the four Kumaras. And in turn, Sankyayana Muni taught it to Parashara Muni, and Brahaspati. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam and Skanda Purana as well. Here's the verse in the Bhagavatam. The great sage Sankyayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master, Parashara, and Brahaspati both heard him. So who is the person writing this? This is Vyas. Vyas was the son of Parashara. Yes? Also in Skanda Purana, Brahaspati in turn spoke to Uddhava, and Parashara Muni spoke to Maitreya. Yes? We find this in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Maitreya is describing this to Vidura. He heard from Parashara. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulasya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, the Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Then in turn, there's Maitreya speaking the Bhagavatam to Vidura. Now, where did this take place, by the way? Maitreya spoke the Bhagavatam to Vidura in Haridwar. I'll say it again, because we're going to Haridwar. I'm immersed up to here in Haridwar. And this is one of the glories of Hari, is the Supreme Lord. Dwara means gate. So it's the gate of Vaikuntha, the gate to the abode of the Supreme Lord. That's where Maitreya spoke to Vidura the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it covers something like almost 20 chapters of the third canto of the Bhagavatam in Haridwar. It's a very special place, Haridwar. So now, here's this. I want to cover this one topic, and then we're done. This is the same poster that you see, the verse that says you give the Bhagavatam on a golden throne, and the benediction, the pala. He, the giver, will attain the supreme transcendental destination. So someone might wonder, if this supreme transcendental destination, isn't it just an exaggeration? What's the destination? What's being promised here? Is it, the Sanskrit word is artavad? It's the doctrine of an exaggerated claim to get people a little inspired to do something. And then, according to Rupa Goswami, there's no such thing in the Vedas as exaggeration. There's no such thing. It's not a myth. It's a fact. So how do we understand that? For example, this is right from Nectar Devotion. For example, the four Kumaras pictured here on the far right, they, just by the fragrance of the sandalwood that they smelled from the gates of Vaikuntha, the incense offered to the Lord in the sandalwood, they became transcendently enlivened. Or another nice example given in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami, Bilvamangala Thakur, just hearing about Krishna, his material attraction became diminished, and he started for Vrindavan. According to, this is again Sanatana Goswami, according to him, there's no such thing as exaggeration in bhakti-related literature. Here's the verse from the Bhagavatam. To presume, therefore, that these words of Bhakti Shastra are merely overstated praise is certainly unreasonable. Here's what he says. That devotional service is vastly superior to mere liberation is not an idea one should dismiss as artavad or exaggerated praise. We'll go forward. Oops. However, the speed at which spiritual results come from spiritual activities depends on the nature and intensity of faith of the practitioner. Just like we had this nice discussion about Queen Kunti. I'm going to end with this. Queen Kunti, celebrated personality. You know who is Queen Kunti, right? Yeah. Remind me. I forgot. Queen Kunti is? Yeah. And the mother of the Arjuna. Yeah. She had, there was a co-wife. Her name was Madri. Madri had 2 sons, and Kunti had 3 sons. You know about that? Okay. Sons of Pandu. The Pandavas. So Kunti was the mother. Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjun. So in Kunti's prayers, she had deep, profound love for Krishna. She understood who Krishna was, but she spoke as if she didn't understand who Krishna was. And she addresses the fact that some people falsely accuse Krishna of being partial. You like these people and you don't like those people. You show kindness to some people. Good fortune comes to some people and bad fortune comes to other people. So you're partial. Some people say like that. He said it's not so. She says that just like the sun in the sky shines equally to everywhere. However, the receptivity of that which is receiving the light of the sun may be different. An owl closes his eyes during the daytime, and a blind man can't see anyways because they're blind. Or she gives other examples. The Vaidurya Mani, there's a certain stone that not only sparkles in the sunlight, but it restores the light of the sun, and it gives light from the sunlight, but it's not the full brightness of the sun. And in the same way, according to receptivity, the light of the sun is going to act and be received differently, but it's the same light of the sun. The sun isn't partial. The variation is the receptivity of the light of the sun. So similarly, the Bhagavatam is brilliant as Krishna, and because it's not different than Krishna, and how it's going to be received is going to depend upon the faith or the receptivity of the person hearing it. It makes sense, and it's really how things happen, and so. Yeah. There's a statement in the Brahma Samhita, Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha. This is towards the very end of Brahma Samhita. Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. This is Bhakti Siddhanta's translation. This is the end of what I'm presenting. One's realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. So there's Krishna is the source. There's one source of everything. The Bhagavatam asserts, and Bhagavad Gita asserts, that Krishna is that one source of everything. There are not multiple sources of everything. There's one source of everything. And that one source of everything, one has different realizations of that one source, according to faith. So the best is to get that message of the one source of everything from the source of everything, from Krishna. This is chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita. The undergraduate study and the graduate study. Understand the source of everything from the source of everything. And the one, according to one's faith in that sound vibration, then one is going to get different realizations corresponding to that faith. And the Bhagavatam acts similarly. Supposing someone doesn't have so much faith, there's benefit anyway. Even if it's not the full light of the day, there's clouds in the sky or something, there's still light. As soon as the sun rises, you can start to see what you couldn't see in the darkness of night. Similarly, the Bhagavatam gives light, and depending upon receptivity, one can get more and more and more and more complete sense of transcendental, our original transcendental position, just from the sound vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this visit to St. Louis, because I'm ending, this visit to St. Louis comes during the month of Bhadra, and I've been promoting, and I planned the next 2 evenings, get ready, to promote the importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance of receiving, the importance of appreciating its message, the importance of transmitting the message, because something you'll find by transmitting its message, it helps you to receive the message. It helps the purification so you can receive the message better. And for those who are not yet with a Srimad Bhagavatam in their home, consider bringing Srimad Bhagavatam into your home. And those that have Srimad Bhagavatam into your home, consider more carefully reading it. Why? Because it gives light in this dark age of Kali. It makes that forgotten connection remembered. Because in fact, there is an eternal relation with our Father, or the source of everything, the source of all living entities. There is an eternal connection with that source. We've forgotten it. And we can remember it just by these very simple activities. The Maha Mantra, chanting Krishna's name, goes well with hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and associating and giving service of one kind or another to a Vaishnava or the Vaishnavas. Just like this festival that we've been having, this 50th anniversary festival. It's Sadhu Sangha. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, passing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam to others. It's our life. It gives us life. It revives our original spiritual life. That's why we like it so much. So let's see if there's some discussion. I've been going on for almost an hour and a half. Yes, you have something. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, so it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam of the 7 days that Maharaj Parikshit had, how many days he heard. No, there is a mention in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that there was some gap between when he finished hearing and when the bird actually came and bit him, or the snake bird. So is it also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam about?
No.
No, right?
That it's not mentioned doesn't mean it didn't happen.
No, yeah. I'm just curious
no,
whether it is mentioned
doesn't mention
also.
there's a gap.
Okay.
Sanatana Goswami mentions it. For example, there are many pastimes. There's 18,000 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. How many verses are there in the spiritual world? Or how many verses are there in the heavenly planets? You know that kind of expression.
Yeah.
The Mahabharata has a certain number of verses, and the heavenly planets Mahabharata is so much bigger.
Yeah.
So there's not everything is in the Bhagavatam. So then transcendental literature can share transcendental realities or reality that's not in the Bhagavatam because it's a limited number of verses. Okay.
One other question I
Yeah.
have, Maharaj. You mentioned a lot of different narrations of Bhagavatam from
At
one
different
person to
times.
another at different times.
Yes.
So I'm curious, Uddhava speaks Bhagavatam, it was mentioned to Maharaj Parikshit one time, and then to the queens at another time.
Yes.
So we don't hear that Uddhava heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Krishna or anybody else. So I'm just curious where. Of course, Uddhava heard a lot of other teachings from Krishna. So
I made reference because Jiva Goswami makes the reference. And the reference source is Skanda Purana.
Okay.
Now, you asked me some details about what's the Skanda Purana statements, and the answer is I don't know. I know that there was such a narration because on the authority of Jiva Goswami mentioning it. But the detail I don't know.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I
think this is a similar question to the previous one. So you mentioned about the queens hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from Uddhava.
Yes.
In Vrindavan.
Yes.
But there is, I think in one of the purports in Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that the queens were abducted by some cowherd men when Arjuna was taking them back.
Yeah. Well, there was an attempt, but they were ultimately rescued. They made their way to Mathura.
Okay.
They're queens. Come on. There was an attempt, and he tried to repel them, and he was overwhelmed by the abductors, by powerful Arjuna. But then he realized my power is from Krishna. But it's not like they got, taken away permanently. They made their way. The detail, I don't know. I know what it says, what you said in the Bhagavatam.
Right.
I know what it says in the Padma Purana. So there are pieces that are missing, similar to the question.
Right. And in the same purport, I remember it says that Krishna made this arrangement for them to be abducted so that they can go back to Godhead. But here it's...
well, that's how they went back to Godhead.
Right.
No problem. And there can be different days of Brahma. That's another...
Right. So I was going to ask about that. Thank you.
Krishna Maharaj. That's nice disclose about the Srimad Bhagavatam. And while I was just stuck to one statement when we made that, when among the assembly of all these scriptures, when Srimad Bhagavatam enters, the other scriptures are not.
They rise. They
Yeah,
stand and respect the Bhagavatam.
yeah. So that I like to a little bit Maharaj clarification, because we often also refers most of the time Skand Puran and the Padma Puran references, which and also pay substantial information coming from there, getting reference from Skand Puran, which are not listed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So with that mindset, how can we understand whether Srimad Bhagavatam is the only point of reference, or we should refer other scriptures alongside us?
I think I understand your question. Let me restate what I think your question is. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Supreme Court, and then there's lower courts. And then the lower courts may not have the final verdict, but the Supreme Court has the final verdict. So,
Yeah.
could you explain why we're making reference from the lower courts when it's the Supreme Court that's really the important one?
Exactly, Maharaj.
That's
Thank
your question.
Thank you for that. Yes.
So, I made reference, and the answer to your question is I made reference because our Acharya, superlative Acharya, Jiva Goswami, makes reference to them. I don't know what's in those Puranas. I've not read those Puranas, but he does. And he knows when to make reference from a lower court and when not to. When there are some things that are conflicting, he doesn't. But when there's something that's consistent and he knows that it is, in fact, a truth worthy of being repeated, he brings it to our attention. So I'm bringing it to your attention because he's bringing it to our attention.
Sure.
So I'm just following disciplic succession, and he knows how to cherry pick which fruits from which Puranas.
Got it, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Big question, but it's a weird question I would like to ask.
You got a weird question?
Yeah,
Oh.
maybe I'm thinking that way. So the reason is, when you're saying about one of the slide about the queens went to Vrindavan and they're hearing from the Uddhava,
Yeah.
all the Bhagavatam. So when you said that way, so Arjuna rescued them and they bring them back to Mathura. And the Parikshit escorted them from Mathura to Vrindavan to meet the Uddhava, get the Bhagavatam, or to get the child pastimes of the Krishna. So in that sense, I just want to ask you, so the Rukmini is the incarnation of Lakshmi,
Yeah.
and Krishna left long back the world, because and the Parikshit will become only the king only after the Pandavas left from the world.
Yes.
So there is a lot of time. I don't know the number of
Yeah,
years, but
yeah,
maybe
some years, correct.
yeah. So when the Krishna left this world, but all the queens, 8 queens are here for such a long time
Yeah.
without Krishna.
Yeah.
So why this is like this when the incarnate, when the Krishna left, but why the Lakshmi is still there for several years without
Well, there was a pastime for her.
pastime for her?
The
No, but
the
is there any
pastime-
reason
the-
for
the-
that way?
The pastime was the feelings of love and separation. Like, for example, a lot of time passed from when Krishna left Vrindavan, and the gopis were still present in Vrindavan. Balaram, many years later, Balaram, at Krishna's encouragement, went back to Vrindavan, and Krishna gave words of pacification to the gopis who Krishna had rasa dance with, to say he'll come back. That's a whole chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vrindavan visit by Lord Balaram, in the latter part of the 10th canto. So your question was, What are the queens still doing long after Krishna left? They're feeling separation. That there's a pastime of love intensified by feelings of separation. And that was a pastime. And then there's another pastime to have that feeling of love being pacified by hearing Uddhava speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Another pastime. So why were they still around? Which is your question.
Yeah, I mean, is there any role behind that?
It's the pastime.
Thank you.
Pacifying their mood of love by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Uddhava. It was worth the wait. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. There is a question from Lal Gopal Prabhu.
Okay.
So Lal Gopal asks, Dandavad.
Read slowly.
Yeah. Dandavad Maharaj, request you to kindly help me to understand Brihad Bhagavatam is the summary of Srimad Bhagavatam. When the content in Brihad Bhagavatam is totally different from Srimad Bhagavatam.
The history is different, but the essence is not different. The details of history are different, but the essence is not. He's speaking to his mother. Maharaj Parikshit is narrating to his mother, Uttara, the essence of what he heard. He's not retelling the story as he heard the story. He's giving the essence, the summary, the essence. In a different historical narration, but the essence is there. That's how I understand it anyways.
He says, thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One question, Maharaj. So Vidura is actually Yamaraja was come down
Yes.
as Vidura. So I mean, I heard in this lecture that Vidura also got to hear Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
So
Why not?
So did Vidura go back home, go to Godhead rather than taking his position as Yamaraja Prabhu?
Rather than what?
Rather than again going and taking back the position as Yamaraja?
Well, it's the one who hears Srimad the position. Let's do this. Two things. To say that Yamaraj manifested as Vidura, does that mean Yamaraj hung a sign by his door and said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to be on vacation for a while. Back again after I finish my life as Vidura"? Or B, an angsa, an expansion of Yamaraj, was present in the life of Vidura. My understanding of this option B, similar to, listen carefully, similar to the demigods who assisted Krishna in his pastimes, because when going back to before Krishna appeared, what happened? The demigods were being harassed by the overabundance of kings on planet Earth, and the kings went to the shore of the Milk Ocean, along with Mother Earth personified as a cow, asking, "Help!" And Vishnu said, "I'll come, and I would like you all to manifest on Earth also to assist me." Correct? Now, the demigods did that. They hang up a sign on the door that said, "For 125 years, we're out to lunch. We'll be back after lunch. We're going on a little vacation for, taking part in Krishna's pastimes." Or B, an angsa, an expansion of them, manifested and took part in Krishna's pastimes. It's B, and the verification of that, of the two options, is when Krishna arranged, this is described in the Bhagavatam and in the commentary by our acharyas, there are two categories of persons who were participating in Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka. One, eternal associates of Krishna. Two, demigods who appear to assist Krishna. So when, this is pointed to your question, when the event happened at Prabhas, and the entire Yadu dynasty warrior group destroyed each other, there were two destinations. One, the eternal associates entered into the unmanifest pastimes in Dwarka, eternal unmanifest pastimes in Dwarka, and two, some returned to their position in the post of demigods. The Angsa, the expansion, rejoined the person, the demigod from which they were expanded. So my understanding with the situation of Vidura is like that. It's the option B, not option A.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yudhishthira didn't go on vacation. Excuse me, Yamaraj didn't go on vacation.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, earlier today in the Bhagavatam class with you and all the devotees, we were talking about how Srila Prabhupada structured the morning programs.
Yeah.
So basically, the morning program, then Bhagavatam in the morning, and then Bhagavad Gita in the evening. Srila Prabhupada really wanted the devotees to study all the transcendental literature. So going off of that, and also after your presentation, do you have any practical recommendations on how do we structure like daily sadhana and studies? Should we read the Bhagavatam first and then chant our rounds, or what time, or what?
There's no rules. There's minimum for all of us, and that's the minimum for all of us is we make the outside clean, we make the inside clean. Take a bath and brush our teeth, and then make the inside clean. And then what makes the inside clean can be different. I know what I do, but what I do isn't necessarily what the other members of ISKCON do or other faithful followers of Prabhupada do. It's not guaranteed that they do the same thing that I do. My personal focus is the chanting of the holy name, because there's several becauses, but one of the big becauses is that's the vow to my spiritual master. Then that comes first, and then that vow having been fulfilled, then that gives me clarity and strength and some degree of purity to go on to the next thing. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is something I do every day, but we discuss this in the car ride on the way over. It's not that my system is I read the Bhagavatam from cover to cover and then go back and read it from cover to cover and go back and read it from cover to cover. But rather, depending upon the circumstance, I'll focus on this section and then another time focus on that section, but it's immersion in the Bhagavatam. Now, I've certainly, anyway, so that's what I do, but it's not that that's what everyone has to do. So many of you are not residents in temples, nor have you lived in temples. You live in your home, and you do what you do. You get up in the morning and you make the outside clean, and you make the inside clean. And how you structure your day is individuals. Here's an example. My understanding is that Srila Prabhupada did not chant all of his chanting, japa, in one go, although many of us do, just by choice and for other reasons. He through different periods of the day, for whatever the reason he did it, I don't know, but he would chant some of his rounds this time, some of his rounds that time, some of his rounds another time. Now, there's not a fixed rule, which is kind of what you're looking for. There's the pattern that Prabhupada gave in his temples, and there's a reason for it. The regulation means that you're more likely to do it every day, even if there's something pressing on you. You do it every day because you do it every day. you know, it can become mechanical, but it can also become regulated elevation. Like, eat your spinach. Oh, spinach. But it's good for you, so you eat spinach. Is that right? Okay. I think we're nearly done. Are we done? There's something more. Okay, but we got something before your last question. He's got the microphone. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaji. So my question is, I think that all the demigods came to serve Krishna when Krishna was doing his pastimes as coward boys.
Yeah.
So my question is, when Indra was as a coward boy, why did Lord Indra challenge Krishna and in the Govardhan Leela?
Why did Indra do what?
Challenge Krishna and
Challenge.
Yeah.
Oh. It was designed by Krishna because when somebody gets lots of piety, they get lots of prosperity and position and title, but their heart may not be pure. And when there's that, so here's a math formula. Fruits of piety plus a heart that's not pure equals pride. Indra was proud. Big position, big power, big, woo, woo, woo. He was proud. And Krishna knew he was proud. Krishna didn't like that he was proud. So Krishna made a plan to curb his pride. It was the kindness of Krishna. And Indra didn't take it that way. He took it, who's this little boy? I'll show him and to see how powerful I am.
Thank you very much.
The purpose was fulfilled. The pride of Indra was broken. And he came and apologized profusely. I mean, he did bad stuff. For the residents of it, he was attempting to inundate the whole of it, submerge the whole of it, drown the cows and the residents of Vrindavan because of his pride. Shame on him. Pride. You can do destructive things when you're proud. And Krishna wanted to take it away. And he did.
Thank you very much.
And now the last question, last but not least.
From my side.
You have one more.
The generic question is like what is the essence of Bhagavatam versus essence of Bhagavad Gita? So how do we define both?
Essence of Bhagavatam, what's the second one? Bhagavad Gita?
Gita.
Gita, okay. Let's have the microphone back. Nice question. And I'll recite some Sanskrit, which you probably know, but it has the essence. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedam vasyam atravastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. That's what the essence is. What's that? Paradharma. Dharma has different meanings, but the essence of the duties of life. You take the human form of life. It's a life of facility, and it's a life of responsibility. When you have facility, you use it wisely. And paradharma is the best use of this human form of life is not just for the benefit of me, but for the benefit of all living entities. No, that's paradharma. The essence of Bhagavatam is paradharma. How all living entities can be benefited if you as an individual or I as an individual or human race as a group can engage in this making this sound vibration that glorifies the source of everything. And the more we can do that, the more light comes into this dark realm that we're living in, the material creation. So the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam and the essence of Bhagavad Gita is that. I mentioned already at the very, very, very beginning, maybe you weren't here, in response to this young lady that wasn't sure what Bhagavad Gita is. So Bhagavad Gita, the essence of Bhagavad Gita is all other duties, sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. The essence of Bhagavad Gita is that. There are many, 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 so many duties that responsible people can do, should do, and do. And then those are all subordinate to one principle, the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarva dharmam prajaja mam ekam sharanam. That's the essence. Mam ekam sharanam. And the Bhagavatam same, just in an elaborated version. The graduate study of the undergraduate study. The elaborated version of that. Take full shelter. And how? The sound vibration, the hearing of the glories and the name and the fame and the qualities and the pastimes, the loving dealings, and the brilliant light of this source of everything. Okay. So thank you all very much for coming this evening. Part 2 and Part 3, the next 2 nights. Little different, but the emphasis is, the spotlight goes on Srimad Bhagavatam again. Bhadra Purnim. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.